This Thanksgiving food coma's lasted more than a day. I'm gonna need some energy if I'm gonna do this show. Oh yeah. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Things are getting festive over here. We've got a special episode in store for you today. You know, NASCAR Silly Season, the name is kind of misleading because unlike other seasons, it's not limited to like a 3-month time frame. No, NASCAR Silly Season runs 24/7, 365, year in, year out. You never know when the next big silly season move could be announced. Today, we're gonna look back at many of the big announcements we've seen this year in 2021, and I'm gonna tell you who the winners, losers, and biggest unknowns are of this year's NASCAR Silly Season. But first, this episode is sponsored by Fission. Zero sugar, 0 calories. Fission is the world's first customizable energy drink. And what do I mean by that? Well, to enjoy Fission, simply fill your bottle with water, then select your favorite flavor and screw that into the top. And then by using the flavor dial, you can customize just how much kick, how much flavor you get. It's pretty fun to experiment with, and I've enjoyed trying out their vast variety of unique flavors. Fission wants to hear your thoughts, what your favorite flavors are. You can get a special discount by heading to drinkfission.com/EricEstep. You click that link down in the description. There you'll get 10% off your Fission order, so be sure to give Fission a try for yourself over the holiday season. And let me know down in the comments what your favorite flavor of Fission is. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. Favorite flavor of Fission. Try saying that 5 times fast. Thank you so much to Fission for sponsoring this episode of Out of the Groove. 2021 has already seen more than its fair share of major silly season shakeups, from Brad Keselowski leaving Team Penske where he won a championship to go test the waters at Roush and actually become a co-owner. Chip Ganassi selling his team with Kurt Busch heading to Toyota and Ross Chastain landing with Trackhouse. New teams like GMS joining the Cup Series with Ty Dillon. There have been a ton of huge moves in this year's silly season, and there still could be some other big moves here in the coming months. Drivers like Ryan Newman wants to race next year but doesn't have a ride lined up. Matt DiBenedetto, of course, Cup Series regular, has not announced any plans for next year, so the holidays could be very, very busy still. But here today at the end of November, I want to go through many of those major silly season moves that I just mentioned, and I want to tell you who, so far at least, the winners, losers, and biggest unknowns of this year's silly season are. Purely subjective, feel free to agree or disagree with me in the comment section below, but let's have some fun. Let's begin with the biggest winners of this year's silly season so far. Let's begin with Ty Dillon. He is without a doubt a huge winner. This video is going to mainly focus on the Cup Series, but Ty Dillon went from sitting on his couch most of this year to landing a full-time Cup Series ride with a brand new Chevy-backed team next year. And the few times he did get up off his couch this year, he didn't really impress. I mean, he was like the only driver in that 54 Xfinity car this year to not only not win a race, but he failed to finish inside the top 10 in 4 starts. Granted, 2 of those were at super speedways and he had mechanical failure in the other start, but still, the fact that Ty Dillon was not full-time in any NASCAR series this year, has not won a NASCAR race since 2014, that was his lone Xfinity win, the fact that he landed a full-time Cup Series gig with a Chevy-backed team, that has to make him a huge winner. He's got those Chevy connections, we can't deny that. He's a recognizable name and he likely won't destroy any of your brand new next-gen cars, so it's an understandable choice by GMS, but you gotta say, that's a pretty big win considering the low point he was at the beginning of 2021. Next up, 23XI Racing. Yeah, they're big winners. They managed to sign probably the most talented free agent on the market this year, Kurt Busch. He's a veteran, high pedigree, championship caliber driver. He will bring to 23XI Racing everything they were missing this year. This year, they were lacking in experience, especially experience winning races. Kurt Busch is bringing winning experience to that team, and he's also bringing some sponsorship from Monster Energy, which never hurts. Yes, 23XI Racing did struggle to find a charter, and they have not actually announced the acquisition of a charter publicly yet, but it sounds like, according to reports, they have purchased Starcom's charter. So Kurt Busch in the 45 car will have a charter next year, so I think 23XI has to be one of the biggest winners of this silly season. Focusing on teams, Roush Fenway Racing, or now RFK Racing. Big winners. Roush Fenway Racing has been floundering for more than half a decade. Something radical needed to happen to hopefully boost Roush Fenway into being a contender once again. And it doesn't get much more radical than bringing in an all-new championship caliber driver who is also now going to be a business partner. His name is on the sign. This is a huge win for Roush Fenway Racing. They're getting Brad Keselowski, who's going to be 38 at the beginning of next year, still in his prime. He's won won at least one race in 11 straight seasons. He's the 2012 Series champion. At his age, he will still be an elite driver for at least a few more years, and once he does choose to hang up the helmet once and for all, he also has a very bright future as a team owner. Jack Roush just signed his retirement plan, if you will. And my last big winner, I gotta say Ross Chastain, and let me explain. When Chip Ganassi Racing announced that they had sold the team to Trackhouse, there were some concerns about Ross Chastain's future. Kurt Busch had said that Trackhouse had reached out to him about possibly getting their second seat. For a short period of time there, Chastain's Cup Series future seemed to be in doubt once again. He'd had a respectable 2021 season, but there was no guarantee that he would still have a job next year until Trackhouse finally gave him the call. He signed a contract. Look, Trackhouse had plenty of growing pains in their first year last season. Plenty of mechanical failures, but they also showed flashes of brilliance. They moved into their new race shop, which I believe is actually Chip Ganassi's shop this week. The future is bright for Trackhouse, and Ross Chastain hitching himself to that bandwagon in the early stages could be huge for his career. Based on last year, I don't think Trackhouse is quite as competitive as Chip Ganassi Racing was, but the next gen car, again, in many ways will be an equalizer. Can Ross Chastain contend for a playoff spot next year? I think that should be the goal, at least going in. All right, now I want to talk about the losers real quick. And this is a tough category because, silly season's not over. Things could change. And there also aren't many losers in this deal because, typically when a team is swapping out drivers, they're doing so because they think their new driver is going to be better than the last. So usually teams are getting an upgrade, drivers are trying to land better rides. So there aren't a whole lot of clear-cut, obvious losers in this year's silly season, but let's begin with an obvious one. Chip Ganassi Racing is without a doubt a loser. They cut their losses and will not be racing in NASCAR next season. I can't call them total losers. They were able to sell their charters for probably a pretty penny to Trackhouse, as well as a lot of the other resources like the race shop. So I'm sure Chip Ganassi made out okay at the end of the day, but for fans of Chip Ganassi Racing, for just that team in general, they won't be racing next season. They have sold, they're not going to compete in NASCAR. To me, that makes them losers. They've gone away, unfortunately. So I got to start with them. The only driver I'm going to put definitively in this category, and this is a risky play by me, but I'm going to say, and I hate to say this, Ryan Newman is in the loser category. See, this is what I mean. Silly season is not over yet. Ryan Newman could announce next week that he signed a deal with a team to race next season. See, the only reason I'm putting Newman in the loser category is because I do think that's very unlikely. He could theoretically sign a deal with the team. He might have something in the works. I have not heard anything, but I also don't have eyes and ears in Newman's camp, but it seems unlikely at this point. He's one of the oldest drivers in the Cup Series. His stats have been lacking the last 2 seasons. His performance has clearly dipped since 2019. He made that impressive playoff run. I just don't think Ryan Newman is an attractive candidate to any current NASCAR Cup Series program. He could theoretically land an Xfinity or Truck Series ride. I don't think Newman's done racing. You'll see him out in at a dirt track or something at some point in the next couple of years, probably in the next couple of months if I had to guess, but I'm skeptical that he will race in the NASCAR Cup Series next season, at least not full time. He could pull a Matt Kenseth. If somebody gets hurt, somebody gets removed from their seat mid-season, Ryan Newman could be the optimal substitute driver teams call on. I would be shocked if Newman never races in the NASCAR Cup Series again. I would be shocked if he comes back and does it full time though. So I have to put him in the loser category because it sounds like he wants to race full time. I just don't think there's a decent team out there that would be willing to give him a ride. So I'm gonna put him in the loser category tentatively. I'll end that category right there. Let's move over to the unknown slot because this is where things get really, really interesting. I want to begin with 2 drivers. First, Matt DiBenedetto. Matt DiBenedetto's on the bubble. I almost put him in the loser category because he's losing his ride with the Wood Brothers, who is a fairly competitive, that's a playoff contending team. He's lost that ride, and no other Cup Series ride appears to be on the horizon. But again, because silly season is not over, because the off season still has another couple months to go, I'm not going to write off the possibility that Matt DiBenedetto could land a decent Xfinity or Truck Series ride, or maybe even something in the Cup Series, just probably not as good as what he had with the Wood Brothers. So he's teetering on that line between unknown and the loser category for this video, but I'll keep him in the unknown category because he seems to have a strategy in mind that could lead him to some funding. The question then will remain, will any teams take that funding? I don't know. I think Matt DiBenedetto is going to have a very interesting offseason. Another driver in a similar situation, well, kind of, Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is also in this unknown category, a huge mystery for him. He's lost his ride at JTG. That car didn't even have a charter last season, so it wasn't a shock to see that team effectively go away. But I'm not going to put him in the loser category because honestly, in my opinion, that JTG ride was like the NASCAR equivalent of a dead-end job. I don't know that he has much funding, but if you've watched him race modifieds, if you watched what he did in his one and only Truck Series start this year at Nashville, the dude clearly has talent. He might not land a full-time Cup Series ride next season, but I could absolutely see Priest landing with a competitive Truck or Xfinity Series team. He could be out of the sport come February. I would be surprised, I would be disappointed if that was the case. I think he has enough talent to succeed in any of the top 3 levels of NASCAR. He's proven it before in one-off appearances for competitive teams. I think if any competitive team in the lower ranks gave him a shot, he would be an instant championship contender. So I think a team will see that in Ryan Preece and will make something happen before February. That's just my gut feeling, so I'm gonna leave him in the unknown category for now. Brad Keselowski fits into the unknown category. Like I said, this is a big win for Roush. They're bringing in a championship caliber driver who's also gonna be a team owner for perhaps decades to come. That's a huge win from the team's perspective, but from Brad Keselowski's perspective, this is a huge risk, especially in the short term. Because in the short term, from a driver's perspective at least, RFK is an equipment downgrade from Penske. Again, next gen car, who knows, maybe Roush becomes more competitive next year. I think that's very possible, but based on the last 7, 8, 10 years, Roush is worse than Penske. So he's taking a downgrade there. So his on-track results will likely be down next year compared to his last decade or so at Penske, but it's about the long-term vision for Keselowski. Will he be able to make RFK a more competitive team? How will the next gen car play into that? Can Keselowski get this team their first win since 2018? Like, those are the questions, and I think those are all very difficult tasks Brad Keselowski has in front of him. Kurt Busch is another big unknown. Again, this is a huge win for 23XI. They're bringing in a championship veteran driver, but if you're Kurt Busch, Kurt Busch all year long, he's had options. And I think, based on what was on the table, I think him going to 23XI Racing was probably the best option. But 23XI Racing, yeah, they did win a race last year at Talladega, but overall, they did not appear to be as competitive as Chip Ganassi Racing's equipment, what Kurt Busch drove last year. But I'm optimistic because 1, this is year 2. They've brought in some new people over at 23XI, including Kurt Busch. And 2, the next gen car, again, could help a team like 23XI Racing get their feet underneath them faster. I mean, Kurt Busch, he's going over to a Toyota Racing Development, a TRD-backed team. On paper, this team looks super attractive, but they are still very inexperienced. So next year will be a huge unknown for Kurt Busch. My last big unknown is the Wood Brothers. Wood Brothers Racing. Matt DiBenedetto did not light the world on fire last season, missed the playoffs, but I don't expect Harrison Burton in his rookie Cup Series season to do any better. Harrison is going to be a project. He's not going to be as good as Matt DiBenedetto off the bat, but hopefully over the next couple of years, he could evolve into a very solid, a very good Cup Series driver. I think that's possible. Burton was winless last year in the Xfinity Series. He did win 4 races the year before in 2020, and he does bring some sponsorship, decks to the Wood Brothers, so I think the team probably likes that. But I don't expect their on-track performance to improve next season. In fact, I expect 2022 to look worse for the Wood Brothers than 2021 did. It's all about the long game. Can Harrison Burton be a legitimate force in the Cup Series 2, 3, 4 years from now? That's when we'll know whether or not this was the right decision from the Wood Brothers perspective. But for now, at least, it's a big, big unknown because Harrison Burton is really young. And from a statistical standpoint, at least, he has been very inconsistent during his truck and Xfinity tenures. So Wood Brothers Racing, big, big unknowns for next year. I could get into some of the other transactions, but those are the biggest ones I wanted to hit on today. Those are the biggest ones that I thought led those respective categories. Share your thoughts down below. Do you agree or disagree with me on any of these topics? I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I couldn't do the show without your continued support every single month. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I hope you all had a very happy Thanksgiving. I will see you all again later this weekend. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday, folks.